What was the most petty thing an adult did to you when you were younger? My mom asked if I wanted to play 52 card pickup while my friends were over. I asked her what it was, and she said I either want to play or I don't. I told her I didn't want to play anything if I didn't know what it was. She got visibly irritated and threw the cards on the ground and said, "This is 52 card pickup. Pick them up." She then threatened to ground me as she watched me pick the cards up and put them away nicely. I think it was worse because my friends were watching. A lot of people are talking about how cruel my mom sounds, and it led to interesting discussions with my husband today. He agrees that my mom was cruel and feels she was way worse than his dad. I think his dad was worse. Admittedly, my family and neighborhood set the bar low on good parenting. Most of my uncles and both of my grandmas were physically cruel. I have cousins that were mistreated and made to repent as young children for their hand and their own doing that led them there. Great job, Mormons. And other cousins who weren't allowed to finish high school. We took in a lot of cousins. My parents also made it very clear who in the family wasn't safe, wasn't to be trusted or listened to, and which uncles could use a solid kick to the junk before I ever gave them a hug. My neighborhood has gangs and drive-bys and dealers and girls selling themselves. My mom parented by fear the whole neighborhood equally. I don't care if you're the leader of the mafia. My mom will scream in your face. Try her. Nobody shot a gun at our house during drive-bys and no one gave her babies substances. I literally believe grass was barbecue because my whole neighborhood successfully lied to me, but that's another story. I'm 1000% positive the whole neighborhood didn't want to be on her bad side, but I think they all wanted to be on her good side too. We've got neighbors that randomly show up to chat with her instead of going to their dealer next door and buying substances. She'll be an ear and keep them strong and clean. So when I say she wasn't perfect, you all know what I mean, but when I say she did a lot of good, I hope you know what I mean too. Alright, it's supposed to be a funny joke, but she got mad he wasn't a dummy, lol. Story 2. My family had all our belongings stolen while at the beach when I was young. Inside that stuff was my favorite cap, my only cap. I remember I loved that hat and wore it every day everywhere. At that age, I was at that held a big time sentimental value. This woman who was with us at the time started to antagonize me and make fun of me about how upset I was. I was like 6 or 7 because my parents lost more valuable things like a digital camera, which as an adult I can understand, but as a kid trying to deal with this great injustice that not even my parents could make better, it was a big deal. This woman pushed and pushed until I yelled at her to go away, leave me alone, typically out of character stuff for me. She reacted like a true Karen and made up this whole thing to my mother that I was being rude and disrespectful, and that I was telling her and calling her name, so my mother punished me. That was like 20 years ago, and no, I'm not holding a grudge. Just for the record, it was a black Bugs Bunny cap with a big letter B on the front with a maroon brim. I had it on almost every photo of me. As for what the woman said to me, she said words to the effect of, "You lost a hat, grow up and get a grip. Your parents lost a camera, car keys, wallets, stop being a giant baby," etc., 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 yelling at an already crying child. Story 3. Humble brag incoming. Sorry. I was easily the best student in my class in high school, especially when it came to math, physics, chemistry, and the like. I was one of the fortunate ones to whom that stuff came very easily. However, I was pretty shy and didn't really participate in class, I just aced every test. My classmates obviously knew I was great at these subjects, so they'd often come to me for help instead of going to the teacher. Most teachers couldn't really give less of a damn, but there was this one witch. It's been a while, so I can't remember her name, but she taught geometry. She came determined one day to expose me, apparently, and she drew a very convoluted problem on the board and gave us 5 minutes to solve it from some angle. It was the kind of problem that would take me 20 minutes at the very least, and that the rest of a class would probably find impossible to get through. Yet, as soon as the 5 minutes were up, she ordered me to get up on the board and solve it for the class. I asked for a little bit more time, but she insisted I got up so we could do it together. I didn't really have a choice, so I stood up, walked towards the board, suffered silently for a few minutes, trying to think of how to approach the problem, until she finally relented and gave me pointers on how to solve it. After I did, under her instruction, she sent me back to my seat and told the class that if they have any questions, they should be coming to her. I obviously got super angry and was on the verge of tears for the rest of the class. I got her back later that same month, though. She had parked her car in a bit of a hidden space, so I took a leak on her door handle, which I guess is even more petty than what she did to me, but screw her. Okay, I guess I can kind of understand what she did and didn't really think it through even a little sense, but one, you prepare the question, so of course you would know how to solve it, so that doesn't necessarily boost trust that you're better at math, and two, that's a jerk move. Story 4. I had a creative writing teacher in high school who, for whatever reason, hated me. One time, she accused me of plagiarizing a paper I'd written on the grounds that I used words she didn't think a high school girl would know. Being poor, I always had to handwrite my papers and bring them to school to type because we didn't have a computer. So I showed her my handwritten copy. End of story, right? Nope. She just knew I plagiarized it. No proof, but she was sticking to her guns. I said, "This is BS." To which she replied, "It really shows that you don't have a mother." I'd had enough, so I got up and left. She followed me out and started attacking the way I looked and dressed. I went to the principal's office, who was a friend of my dad's, in tears. He'd known me since I was a kid and knew I didn't cry. Her story was that I was swearing at her and she kicked me out of class. I went home and a friend stopped by and told me that the teacher had been talking smack about me during a play practice. She'd recorded it. My dad finally got me to tell what all had happened, and I don't think I've ever seen him so pissed. Called the principal and set up a meeting with the principal and the teacher. Went to the meeting, teacher came in denying everything, and my dad just told her to shut up. He played the video for the principal and her, then told her that they established that she was a liar. Long story, slightly longer, I ended up finishing out of the year with the principal teaching the class for me. As a grown woman now, I just can't imagine letting a teenage girl get under my skin to the point that I'd give a crap about her as soon as she was out of my sight. Story 5. I was babysitting neighborhood kids. If there were 2 kids, I'd babysit alone. My folks had a rule, though, that if there were 3 or more kids, it was a tandem job, and my sister and I would babysit together, and we both had to be paid. We were young teens when we first started babysitting. 1970s, our rate was $1 per hour each and $1.50 per hour each if they came home after midnight, with a 1 hour minimum after midnight, and they had to take us home by car. So they came home late one night at 12:15 a.m. and were all jolly, seemed to have been to a nice cocktail party or something, and the husband said he was ready to drive us home. We pulled into our driveway and he paid us $1 each per hour for several hours, but not for the midnight minimum hour. He said it was only 15 minutes, so what's the big deal? If we were going to make a fuss about it, he'd give us another 25 cents each for the 15 minutes at $1. We said no. After midnight, we were owed $1.50 each for the whole hour. We'd had to come home, go to bed, go to school in the morning. We were tired. The $1.50 over time was to encourage parents to come home on time or when they promised. He refused. We had been in his car a little longer than average, and my dad and mom were hawks, waiting and watching for us. When we didn't get out his car right away, they came out to get us, and we were saying he owed us another $3 and didn't want to pay. My dad took $3 out of his wallet, gave it to us, and said to the man in the car, "I just paid my daughters to watch your kids after midnight. I don't think you'll be calling them again. They will not be available for your kids." The guy grumbled and actually left without paying up. A few days later, his wife called in a panic to apologize and make sure they were not banned. We were the most polite, well-mannered teens in the area, and babysitters were in short supply. She offered us to give the $3 back. My mother took that call and said, "No, I don't think so. My girls had to try and barter $3 out of a man in a car after midnight. They know their worth and will not be returning for that kind of experience in the future." All right, awesome parents. And she and her sister were great for sticking to their guns, just those girls in the car with a grown man. Anyway, since you're already here, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already so you don't miss out on any of my future uploads. Now let's get back to the video and this next story. Story 6. I have a few stories. First, I have horrible handwriting. I have forever. No amount of intervention or practice has helped. When I was in 5th grade, my social studies teacher seemed to take a lot of pleasure in constantly reminding me of how awful my handwriting was. We used to have to bring out notebooks for her to check our homework. I dreaded this so damn much. She would hold up my notebook so the whole class could laugh at my handwriting. I'm grown now, that was a long time ago, but I still hate to have to handwrite anything that other people will see. Second, at 16 years old, I had a job at a gas station after school, did all the grunt work, sweeping cigarettes in the parking lot, emptying trash bins, etc. I'm taking the trash out one day, and a grown ass man in his 40s comes to me and says something along the lines of, I make more money in a week than you do in a whole year. And all I could think at the time was, well, yeah, I sure hope you do. I'm in high school. Such a petty thing to say to a kid just trying to make a little bit of money after school, you know? Third, I got in trouble in sixth grade for reading during homeroom. Homeroom was like a random 30-minute period to work on homework, but I always did my homework the night before so I could just quietly read. For some reason, my homeroom teacher hated it. One day, she just yelled at me for always reading in her class and told me to do my homework. I told her all my homework was already done. She told me to prove it, so I showed her all of my completed homework. Then she confiscated my book and sent me to the principal's office for being disrespectful. I'm still salty about that. Fourth, I was at an Easter egg hunt when I was around 6. It was in a big park area with lots of rocks. I saw a little chocolate egg foil glisten and ran over to pick it up. As I reached my hand out to pick it up, a man trod on my hand to stop me getting it. Then he called his kid over to find it. Fifth, a math teacher handed back our tests in class. They were graded and marked and all that. She was going over some of the questions that most people got wrong, myself included, so I was writing down some notes on my tests so I could reference it later and remind myself why I got things wrong and what I was supposed to do. She ripped my test away from me and started screaming at me that cheating is absolutely not allowed and that I should be ashamed of myself. Confused and in shock, I started choking up and tried to explain that I was just trying to take notes. One of the most humiliating times of my childhood, around 13 years old, and I still don't understand why it happened. Alright, so what the heck is the point of going over the answers if learning the correct answer is considered cheating? Story 7. My first internship. I was on a team that did something with real estate on the corporate finance side. My dad got me the internship and basically forced me to take it. I was 20, had never taken a finance course or high-level business course, and had never had a white-collar job before. Coming into an office at a competitive place to work where everyone on my team is 10 plus years older than me, he'll vehemently deny that he forced me and blames me for screwing it up. The reality of it is that I basically said I wasn't ready, and he made me feel like absolute crap about myself until I changed my mind. I was 100% not ready for it and not interested in going into that field. I probably wouldn't have gotten the job even if my boss was a nice guy, but he wasn't. Dude was 35 to 40 years old and did not like me. Any attempt at small talk was denied aggressively. All questions were answered dismissively. Everyone else was really nice to me. It was my first office job. I was very proficient at Word and Excel for a college sophomore, but had never used Outlook, and he bullied me constantly for that. He would give me extremely vague instructions and absolutely no guidance, and force me to schedule meetings to ask questions. So learning how to do stuff took frickin' forever because I would ask a question, get an answer, figure out how to utilize that answer, and then naturally have another question and have to wait all day for him to be free. He would say, hey, consolidate X files for me, and then just walk away. And consolidating X files consisted of finding one of thousands of file paths on the server, finding another one in thousands in that file path, and then searching for a very specific type of legal document within those thousands of files, and then make me schedule a meeting to ask questions like, where are those? Or what makes X X compared to the Y documents that take all of 2 seconds to answer? Now bear in mind, he was the head of a program that hadn't officially started yet, so his schedule wasn't exactly busy. I caught him smoking a black and mild and eating a burger on top of the parking garage during one of his client meetings once. He would give me nothing to do most of the time and rip on me for not doing anything. I would literally go around the cubicles asking for something to help with, do all of my coworkers' grunt work, and then have 4 hours between getting that done and my meeting with him to ask questions. And he'd come rip on me for not doing anything or not trying. It would have taken days or weeks for me to go through every single file path instead of him just telling me during those 4 hours. And he'd rip on me for leaving at 5 p.m. after 5 hours of nothing to do. Sometimes he'd sit at his desk till 7 just chilling on his iPhone, and I'd have to sit there staring at a blank screen because he'd stare at me if I took my phone out. During our 360 review process, my coworkers gave me an average score of 3 on a 0 to 4 scale. He gave me an average of 0.75. I was the leader of my team of interns for a charity drive. The other interns on my charity drive team are all on separate teams within the office, but we were paired together to be even with some of the larger teams in the office that had more interns. We were in second place out of 10 and had by far the smallest amount of highly compensated employees in our zone of the office, which makes a substantial difference. I thought I was doing a really good job. The team beating us had the highest amount of highly compensated employees in the office and were thousands of dollars ahead on the last day, so I figured, hey, whatever, we had a good run. Nope. I came in on the last day of the charity drive, and this jerk has a janitor cart loaded with trays of breakfast tacos. I try to plead with him that this won't make a difference. I'll even pay him back for the tacos not to do this. Nope. He makes me go office to office, team to team, selling tacos. My first interaction with 99% of the people I sold tacos to, people laughing at me and stuff. I've been a dishwasher. I've been a busboy. I was a Jimmy John's driver. I was a pledge. And I have never, ever felt so freaking degraded in my life. I probably would have quit if that wasn't a week or two from the end of the internship. On my last day, I had conversations with everyone. Most of my coworkers said something along the lines of, "We'll miss you. Sorry your boss was a jerk." And my boss basically ripped me apart, told me that I should change majors and that this wasn't right for me. Said a ton of really hurtful stuff with little to no constructive aspects. At the end of it all, he says something along the lines of, "Well, we'll miss you and I hope you learned a lot." And I had enough. To preface this, I got the job through connections and my dad worked for the company and was very close with the head of our entire division. I'm not normally one to play this card. 99% of the time, the "do you know who my dad is" card is incredibly cheap, beta, cringy, and usually unwarranted. I believe it was warranted here. Nobody at the internship knew who my dad was, and that was by design. I wanted to be treated without bias to know who I could trust and where I stood. I responded with tears in my eyes, "Yeah, I had a great time. I can't wait to tell my dad about it." "Who's your dad?" "Oh, he did X really important thing for the company for a while, but he's retired now. He's really good friends with your boss's boss's boss." Dude goes white in the face and says, "Oh, I almost forgot your present." He goes and gets an extra company water bottle from his desk that he definitely just had sitting there. 180 change in his demeanor. He wants to be my best frickin' friend now. And all of a sudden, it's all smiles and chit chat and, "Well, if you ever come back, you'll always have a place to stay." Screw you. He passed away from a car accident 5 days later, and I couldn't really say anything to the company about how much of an absolute jerk and lazy employee he was due to the optics, which really frustrated me. Story 8. My high school required uniforms. This extended to PE, but we instead had to wear one of two approved PE shirts and khaki shorts. I only had one PE shirt. It had a hole in the armpit. As I walked past, my dad hooked his finger into the hole and yanked it to rip it wider. Then he laughed at me when I said I had enough problems without him causing more for me. My dad, again, took me fishing and told me to invite a buddy. 3 hours in, we hadn't caught anything. But my buddy and I didn't say crap about it. My dad asked if we wanted to just go home. I said yes, and he called me out, called me a mama's boy. Dropped me off about a mile from home, so I had to walk and told the car had to be washed when he got back. My buddy backed me up when we got back. My mom did not. "Oh, look, it's my dad. I came home from school and he randomly said, 'Today, you're studying Spanish.' I told him I had other homework, but he didn't care. As soon as he left, I started doing my other homework. He came back and took away my book, grounded me, and made me study Spanish. My teacher didn't believe me when I told him my dad wouldn't allow me to do my homework. I definitely don't blame the teacher, because that makes no sense. Alright, I hope he doesn't have to interact with his father much anymore. This is some insane, crazy parent level of petty BS. And if you like these stories and one of them got to you, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. I'll catch you in that video, and thanks for watching this one.